Welcome to this video tutorial. The first thing you will need to do in order to get started is import a logo file. To do this, you can go inside this project area window over here, double click, navigate to your logo destination and double click to import your logo file. Then inside this edit folder right here at the top, you will have a logo holder composition and a text holder composition. So double click the logo holder composition to access it. Inside this composition, you can grab this previous layer that was here and just delete it, and then drag your logo inside this composition like so. Here you can make any adjustments you might find necessary for your logo, such as positioning and scaling. So for example, with this layer selected, I can press S for scale and rescale and adjust. And if I go back inside my render composition, which you can also access through your render folder right over here, so double click to access this composition, we can kind of see how how your logo will look in the final result. And just make sure you preview some frames here and make sure that everything is nice and centered and properly adjusted. Alright, so going back to my editing folder right over here, there's a text holder composition which you can access again by double clicking. So here you will have your tagline, and double click this text layer, and now you can change your text. So you can type whatever you want, or you can make a new text layer. Really, you can put whatever text you want here. And just FYI, this font is called Go Bold, and it's available on thefont.com. Let's go back inside our render settings, or rather the render composition. And here we can see how our final result will be. So let's say maybe I'll go back inside the text holder composition and just adjust my text a bit. So you can format this text however you want. Just make sure that it's centered. Maybe scale this down a bit. The font size and the spacing. Let's go back. Alright, so let's say this is looking fine. Let's talk a bit about some of these settings here. So the first one, the first thing here is that you have to select this colors layer, and if you go here at effect controls up here at the top, so press F3 on your keyboard to show this window, and let's select a frame here. Let's see what happens if we change the first color. So we can change these colors. Let's go with the green. Alright, so essentially it will grab all of the blues and turn them into greens. And then for the second color, let's maybe use a yellow. Alright, we can kind of see how how the changes work. So you can preview some frames and make sure that your colors are set. If some of these colors you might find a little too bright, you can just desaturate your color. So make sure that you play around with the color picker here and choose more desaturated or darker tones of the color if necessary. Alright, so hit OK when you're done. And there are a couple more controls here. So one will be text height, and let's move forward a few frames. So now with the text height selected, I can scroll and change the height of our text. So this will be entirely depending on what kind of logo you're using. If you don't want to use a tagline at all, you can go inside the text holder composition and just disable this layer or just delete it entirely, and now you won't have any text at all. So let's go back here and turn this back on. So going back inside the render composition, finally we have our logo height, and you can see that there are a couple of keyframes here for the logo height. And if you don't have these keyframes showing, you can grab this colors layer and press U. Alright, so U will bring up the keyframe information. So these two keyframes are just responsible for this logo flying a little bit upwards. So for example, if I were to go at my second keyframe here and change the value for this, you can see that you can make the logo go or rather fly a little bit more upwards or downwards depending on what kind of logo you're using. So what's important to note here is that usually you will have to change the second keyframe of this setting. Of course, if you're not using a tagline, you can disable the animation by clicking on the stopwatch over here. So now the keyframes are gone, so there's no animation, and I can set this back to 0. So now my logo is nice and centered, and if you don't want to use text holder or rather text tagline, you can have that option, and now only the logo will be shown. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the settings. After you've done making all of your changes, you can go to composition, you can go to pre-render. Where it says render, you can select a file name and a destination. Inside custom AV, you can select a format. H.264 is usually pretty good. Select audio output as well if you want to export the sound effects, so don't forget this. Hit OK, hit render, and that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching.